All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get started here. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining the AMA. One thing to note, this will be recorded. So if you're not okay with being recorded or being in a session that is, just want to give you that heads up. We'll go ahead and start that now. Okay, awesome. So the way that we want to run the AMA is going to be pretty similar to what we did for the last Ask Us Anything. So it's going to be a mix between questions that got pre-submitted. So when you went to register, there was an option for you to pre-submit a question. And then there will be a mix of live questions. So if people want to jump in and do a live question, that would be, definitely encouraged as well. So let's go ahead and kind of get started here. So we've got two sections here. We have a Ask Us Anything. So that's going to be taking either questions that you submitted before the event, as well as live questions that you want to come off mute. Now, if you do want to ask a question live, what we are going to do is use the raised hand feature. So if you do have a question, just click raise hand, and then we're going to kind of go through an order of people that have their hands raised, and then we'll just ask you to come off unmute whenever it's your turn to ask that question. At the end, we are also going to do like a demo of new features just to keep you up to date with features that we've added. So that's going to be kind of how we finish up, just covering new features that we think would be helpful for you guys to know. Now, we do have a Easter egg within the slide deck. So just keep an eye out. Whoever spots the Easter egg and messages in Microsoft Teams first will win a $250 Amazon gift card. So just keep
sharing the slides.
Oh, I am not sharing the slides. Thank you, Andrew. Let me share
That's
my
the Easter egg. Andrew, you get $250.
Someone's saying that the chat isn't turned on, but
looks. Can somebody post in the chat? I think I saw a few people post, right?
Yeah, I saw a GIF.
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's good for me.
There we go.
Looks like we're good. Okay.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
okay.
So I'm here talking, not presenting at all.
Don't tell them to do that.
Alrighty, so back to it. So whoever mentions the Easter egg whenever the slide comes up, you'll win $250 an Amazon gift card. With that said, maybe a quick intro from each person on the team, just 5-10 seconds, and then we'll jump right into the Q&A. So my name's Justin, founder here at PatchMyPC. Just kind of run and make sure our customers, have everything that they need. Let's go top left down. So if you want to start, Jody, left to right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jody Lee. I'm on the sales team. And if you've received a welcome video with the ukulele, it's me.
You, Adam.
My name's Adam Cook. I'm a support engineer, PatchMyPC, demos, support calls, all that good stuff. Hello.
Andrew.
Hey, I'm Andrew. I support the catalog for the most part. So if you've had a new app added, I probably made it.
There we go. Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm on the accounts team and sales team here at PatchMyPC. Duh. Can you tell it's Friday for me? If you guys need quotes or any order processing, that's me. I'm on that end.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Whoever's on here, my name is Wes Mitchell. I'm a support engineer here with PatchMyPC. I handle mostly demos and support issues and whatever else I can get my hands on. So just hope you enjoy our call today. Mr. Benzing.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm also a support engineer here at PatchMyPC, and don't let me talk about ADRs because we'll be here for the next 3 hours.
I'm Cody Mathis. I'm an engineer here at PatchMyPC. Do a bit of the software dev stuff, support, all that fun stuff, and I'll hop on to demo calls and stuff too, but I definitely don't have the finesse that the other guys do here for that.
I'm Jake Shackelford, support engineer over here. Demos, support, gift creation, all that fun stuff.
Nice. I am Ben. I'm also an engineer. I think we're all engineers. I do a little bit of the software dev stuff and way too much graph work.
Anybody not on video that wants to do an intro that's on the call, feel free to unmute.
Hi, I'm David Cortel, and I'm a software engineer at PachMyPC, and I'm coding most part of the feature you guys are requesting.
That's where all the magic comes from, right there.
David does everything. We just sit back and...
I'm Marie. I'm part of the sales team. I also packaged up the swag boxes. So if you've gotten a swag box, that was my project. And if you haven't yet, you will get one soon. Promise.
All right. I'm not sure if anyone else is on from our team, but I think we'll go ahead and get started then. All right. So jumping right in, if there's any live questions, we can go ahead and take one now. So if you have a question that you did not submit ahead of time and you want to use the raise hand feature, go ahead and do that. And you can come off mute and we'll take your question. Okay, attendees. Okay, Kent Shaffer, do you want to go ahead and come off unmute? Or is there somebody else that you were talking about, Cody?
That's right.
Okay.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, Kent.
Kent Schaefer from Dun & Bradstreet. So my one question is, and I love the feature of how you update the software, redistribute it, doing the update content feature, so it's always up to date. But my concern is, and maybe you can set me straight on this. For example, Google Chrome, right? So I get emails all the time from your awesome software that says, "Oh, there's another Google Chrome. Oh, there's another one." It seems like there's 10 a month. All right. So my question is, if I have that set up as, always update and update the distribution points constantly, updating it, how does that work as far as my clients being pushed out? So when it updates it, it changes the version, right? And it will push out the new version and install that. My concern is, how does that work? Is it silent? Is it, I don't want to have, oh, you have new software to install, 8 times a month just to install Google Chrome. So I don't know if your scripting just silently just updates those and installs them without the user's knowledge, which I'm hoping it does. But if you could elaborate on that, that would be awesome. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Good question. Does anyone want to jump in, or I'm comfortable with handling that as well, but is there anyone that wants that question? Cool. I'll take it. So are you specifically referring to the base applications that you can create as a new app? Is that kind of where your question's coming in mostly? Like what happens when those update in place?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, awesome. So couple of options. So by default, when you create an app using PatchMyPC, we will update the application in place, right? So that's where it would create a brand, or it would update any previous app. So let's say Chrome 88 is currently out. Google Chrome 89 comes out next week. This application right here that used to be 88 will automatically become, the latest version using the default setting, right? So it would have the same unique ID. And if the application was deployed as required, it would in fact update the client in place, meaning that the app would actually perform the update. Now, the way that most of our customers, I would say, are doing our applications are they're creating either available deployments so that their clients could install it via Software Center whenever they want it, or they're installing it via task sequence when the device is being provisioned. So in that case, what would happen is, the client would always get the latest version to make sure that, the first installation of the app is up to date. And then the way that most customers would handle keeping the application up to date would then be to use the software updates feature. So, as long as the app isn't deployed as required, once it's there, they could use a update to keep it updated going forward. So the only thing I would say you have to kind of note is if you're deploying our apps as required and you're using the update in place, that's the only scenario where the application itself could update without you knowing, because the detection method when we update the app would look for the current latest 89 version, for example. Now, with that said, there is a feature that we're actually going to be demoing later on. I don't want to take too much away from it, but we are going to, give an option where you can have more control over how many versions of applications you want to retain, even if you're updating the app in place. So that would give you more options for rolling back, and we'll demo that a bit further later. But that's kind of the options you have for updating in place. And of course, if you did want to have like total change control, you could use the application option that says create a brand new application whenever a new version comes out. And then in that case, we wouldn't ever change the first app that you deployed. It would just be brand new.
And that's what we're doing right now. So, and as a process, yes, I end up with 15 Googles in a month. So, we're just going to have to narrow it down like once every 30 days, just pick the latest one and push that one out or something. So, okay.
And that's what it boils down to, is you're controlling everything. We don't really do much with the deployments for the apps. So you dictate a lot of that, really, how they get deployed.
And that's also where that new feature comes into play, Kent, as far as that option he's got there where you can retain up to, and that way you don't have to fill up your console. You'll have at least 2 or 3 back, whatever you choose. And that way, because some of these software, companies, they update all the time, as we well know, Google, Mozilla, things like that, because there's always vulnerabilities. So that will most definitely help you in your situation to create a new one, but also have that control a little bit more as far as how many show up in your console.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
That scenario that you highlighted, though, Justin, very quickly is really common. I see that a lot in support, where customers have an application deployed as required, and they have the option set to update in place. And then what they're realizing when they contact us eventually, that is the app that's performing the update, not their software update strategy, their ADRs and stuff. So that's a big gotcha that I see frequently.
I think this one is for you, Cody.
Yeah. So we some of the pre-questions that had come in. One of them, I think I understand what we're hoping to get here. So why, for Intune deployment, PatchMyPC cannot separate between device and user groups for the deployment. And so with this one, we are ultimately limited by the feature set that Microsoft provides us within Intune. And if I'm understanding the question correctly, there is a limitation where available deployments are not able to be made to the all devices group. And actually, what it boils down to is you cannot make applications available to devices in Intune. You can see in required, you can say add all devices, and you can target devices via group membership. But a computer in a group targeted as available, it'll never actually see it. And it's mentioned here in the docs. We've got a link here too if you guys want it. They use interesting language to state it, but this is a graph limitation.
It's so I'm just going to jump in there as well, Grady. So it's a specific thing around the way that the relationship between the user and the device model in Intune works. So that Microsoft basically took the opposite approach to what they did with ConfigMgr, where it was device centric and then it sort of spiraled out to the user. So they've switched it so that now everything is user centric and then it spirals out to the device. So you can't go the other way. You can't go, hit that device and see which user is on it. So when you make something available, it needs to hit the user. That's just how it works. Required, yes, you can make a device have a required application, but if you want it to be available to a user, it needs to be targeted to the user. It's that simple.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Raise hands.
Julie and Rustin have hands up currently.
Okay. Yep. Julie Guest. I'm not sure. There's no last name there. Julie, if you have your hand up, do you want to come off on mute and ask?
Hi. Julie Versoy. I work with Ada County in Boise, Idaho. I worked with Justin a week or two ago. He was showing us the ADRs and how to set those up and everything. And I apologize if the answer to this question is readily available somewhere. I haven't had a chance to look, but he showed me. We set it up using Tidal, and he showed me how you can exclude programs by doing the minus, like Cisco. And I was wondering, is it possible to, that would exclude all Cisco applications, but is it possible to do like minus Cisco WebEx, and that excludes the WebEx, but we'll do all the others like Jabber and AnyConnect and all that? Or is it an all or nothing thing?
Yeah. You want me to get that one?
Yes,
Justin?
Jordan. Yeah, you love ADRs. I would not take that away from you.
Yeah,
Sorry, it
so
was Jordan I worked with, not
yeah,
Justin.
I was going to say, it was me. It wasn't Justin. It's the other Jay. Don't worry. We have enough of them, so it can get confusing sometimes. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. The ADR filters for that, the way that they actually work is they, without specifically calling it out, is they add an implied wildcard on either side of the string that you put in. So if you were to put in something like minus WebEx, right, it would exclude everything but WebEx. So what you would need to do there is you would just need to find the keywords for each one of those Cisco products that you didn't want to include, and do a minus for each one of the ones that you didn't want to include, where it would only match on those keywords. And that's how you would get it out. So like if you had Cisco WebEx, Cisco Jabber, Cisco whatever, and you wanted Jabber but didn't want WebEx, you would do minus WebEx, which would then continue to include Jabber. If you want to do the array around, you just do minus Jabber, which would include WebEx, but exclude Jabber. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and if you wanted some help too, like we were always, like in the signature of Jordan's demo, you can always pick 15, 30-minute call, and we could certainly jump on and help you out with that as well. Perfect. And I did include a link in the chat window that lists all the products that we support and the names that you would want to do to either include or exclude specific products. And just kind of a side note, the reason that we include a single vendor and product within our catalog is because there's a limitation to the number of categories that can be published into WSUS for third-party updates, which is 100. And if you basically exceed that limit, what will happen is it will break where you can't publish any new updates. So that's kind of why you'll notice that we have a vendor called PatchMyPC, and we don't have a vendor for each specific product or vendor within the catalog. Alrighty. Looks like this one is for you, Andrew, if you want to read and cover that one.
Sure. Would you ever think of providing a packaging services for licensed applications? We don't have the time, sometimes the expertise to get software packaged and available for deployment in a timely manner. It's honestly something I'd ask Justin, but I do not believe that it's in the roadmap at this point. We have quite a backlog as it is on like free applications that we can add to the catalog. We have packaged licensed applications before, and we are able to, as long as we are able to get the installer, we can actually add it to the service. We don't put the highest priority on these because they're honestly a little harder to keep up with. We have to rely on we either have to rely on a customer to provide the product for us, or we have to purchase the product ourselves to get access to it. But it hasn't stopped us before for adding certain products.
Yeah, so to add on to that, so there's plenty of licensed products that we support. So for example, TeamViewer is one. We also support like Java Runtime, which is now licensed, AnyConnect. So if it comes down to a licensed product, and especially if we were able to get like a trial and or access to the latest update files, we would treat it like any other app. Now, if the question was more specific to, would you be packaging licensed products that are only specific to my environment? We have no plans on doing any like custom packaging per a specific customer. But if it's like a paid product like a Acrobat Pro or like a TeamViewer, we certainly support quite a few licensed products, and we're always open to those type of scenarios. But if it's specific to you, at least today, we're not looking at like packaging things for specific customers.
And I do want to bring up a separate point. We get a lot of requests for things like AutoCAD and SAS and MATLAB, stuff like that. That's just gigantic in nature, is not suitable for WSUS. The amount of time it would take you to publish one of those to WSUS, to the WSUS database, would be hours. And the amount of configuration options available for those type of apps makes it not super easy for us to choose, because we'd have to choose a configuration to install that product as, and that's not something that we're able to do and appease the whole of our customers.
And it's availability of binaries as well, right? Like
yes.
AutoCAD.
Yeah, those considerations come in after even getting the installers.
Cool. Yeah, and throughout the session, like, as new features and ideas come up, if we mention like, this would be a great idea or user voice for you to submit, what we're referring to is ideas.patchmypc.com. This is our user voice, where basically features that we build and applications that we add, this is how we get that feedback from our customers. So if if we do mention like, hey, could you create an idea for that? That's how we know that we have customers that want specific features. So just be aware, ideas.patchmypc.com. If somebody could paste that in the chat, if we refer to that, that's going to be what we're talking about here. Okay, looks like we have a raised hand. So Rustam Frust, hopefully I didn't butcher that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's Rustam calling from Denmark. I was curious. You had this console where you control PatchMyPC, and you have the UNC place there. My colleague, when he implemented, he made a wrong spelling.
Okay.
So I was thinking, what happened if I just rename it here?
That should okay.
It'll recreate your application.
And I have already really a lot.
It'll recreate your application.
Yeah, so
okay.
So do you already have the content for the
We
for
have
the
a
apps?
lot of content. Yes.
So if we move the applications with the content, I don't think we would recreate in that scenario, would we?
You'd have to change the source folder
for the app in SCCM you're talking
for
about.
every single app in SCCM. Yeah.
Yeah. So the good news is it is simple to recreate all your apps, right? So in the Intune App Manager utility, so you can run this in options, you can go and see every single application that we've created. So if you wanted to do a quick replace and you didn't want to have to go kind of manually change the app paths in Config Manager or use a script to do it, you could just go delete everything that's been created, just clicking delete. You could then update your source and then run a sync, and then it would automatically create all your apps again.
Okay.
That could be a good option.
Okay.
Because the only issue would be like if you change the content folder in our app as well as like move the content, like that's fine. But then you'd have to go update all your apps. So you would have to go into like the deployment type and then change the path. There are scripts that do this, right? In the community that can bulk update deployment types.
Definitely.
So somebody... go ahead.
So if I understand correct, that you say I can go and use your utility to delete all these apps that it's synchronized, I guess.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that would probably be the quickest option.
And then change the source and then let it synchronize again.
Yep, and then it would create all new apps for you in their correct location. Yep, that's.
And what about the existing deployments and stuff like that?
So,
I need to do them again.
You would have to deploy it again. Like, do you have a lot of deployments?
What I would do there, I've done this before, is export all the deployments to a CSV using PowerShell, and then you can redeploy them using PowerShell.
You mean PowerShell to SSM?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't done that.
Feel free to email us, and we can probably walk you through that.
Yeah.
It's not too hard.
Put your email in the chat, Andrew.
Well, actually, I don't have chat possibility.
Go ahead and just submit a support request on our website.
Sure.
I'll pick it up.
I don't have a chat window here in the session.
Oh, that's weird.
Just to say, I don't have
If, you,
that.
if that happens to someone else,
I don't have.
If you restart the meeting, it should appear.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll jump out.
Yeah, it will be worth it to try to get that Easter egg. Okay, cool. Those are live question. Alrighty, so this one it looks like is me. So we have an offline environment. Clients do not have access to the internet. Only the SUP WSUS has access to the internet via a proxy. Will the SUP download from each vendor or from a PatchMyPC repro? Does your tool need access to the internet? So a couple of options here. If you're purely offline, so it sounds like your WSUS does at least have some internet access. Offline. I think you're unmuted, Andrew.
I know.
Offline content. So we do support kind of an offline environment. The only kind of scenario is if you're totally offline, you would have to publish the updates to like a standalone WSUS server. It would really be the same way that you would do for Microsoft Update. So you need to, for example, download the Microsoft catalog from some machine with internet access. And then for the WSUS server that is actually totally offline, you could then export the data and then import it back in. Now for you, it sounded like your WSUS does have some internet access. So there are a few options for the actual downloading of content. So for example, you said, does the machine running the publisher need access to the internet? So we do need access to the internet for validation purposes. So you would at least need to be able to get to patchmypc.com. We do also have an option where if you only wanted to allow us internet to our website, we do have a checkbox where you could essentially place all of the content that you want for updates in the local repository, which is where you can download content offline. So in the advanced menu. And then there's a checkbox that says, check to see if the update binary, which would be like the EXEs, MSIs, or MSP files, exist here first. So if you were really strict and you were not able to, access the files, you could potentially run the service from maybe another location and copy them in. So there's a couple of scenarios that you could potentially do. So hopefully that helped answer that. If not, and you're on the call, feel free to come off unmute if you do have any follow-up questions to that. Cool. Okay, does anybody see any other raised hands? I don't see any at the moment. Okay, so got a couple.
Perez.
There we go. Francisco, do you want to come off on unmute?
Yep. I read something about managing conflicting processes.
Ooh,
future.
Yes.
And something related with the, when you have to uninstall or update and there is a process running and then you have to raise a notification to user or some kind of that. Is like that?
Yep. Do we want to? We do have this in the demo, right? The manage conflicting. I think we are covering that in the demo.
We do.
Okay. So we'll keep you pending on this a little bit. So once we get to kind of the demo of new features, we'll show you some of the new options specific to that feature, which I think will be really cool. So I'll kind of postpone that till when we do the demo, and then you can actually see exactly what we're talking about there, which I think will be pretty cool.
Okay, great.
Okay. Alrighty, Jordan, did you have something you wanted to share out for this one?
I can, yeah. So give me a second here to flip over to real quick.
So while you're doing that,
all right.
Oh, there you go. Yep, that looks good.
Cool. Go ahead. What you were gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say while you're doing it, I'll bring up the reports, but it looks like you've already got it shared out, so you're good.
Yep, I've got the report too. So the question was, what do the elements in the software update dashboard really mean? And so this was kind of a tricky one because there's a lot of the different reports here, but I'm going to take a quick assumption because I get a lot of questions about this one. And if Patrick's here and wants to ask, more detail, I'll meet later. Please feel free. But a lot of the question is around
dashboard.
What is this one? This is the one named this one. Is that right? Did somebody say something there?
Yeah, I was not concerned. Yeah, the main dashboard report, the first report.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah,
this one. Yeah. So the question I'm assuming is about these percentage bars, right? What do these really mean?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
they look pretty and our management likes them, but
yeah. So what do they really mean?
I need to explain what they actually mean.
Yeah. So what are they actually digging into? So what these reports are doing and what they're digging into, if you happen to have Report Builder installed in the machine, you can actually jump into the back behind the scenes and open up Report Builder to dig into them and get the query data. What they are doing is they are querying against this table here, the select from the update compliance status view, in order to figure out, now I have some filtering going on there. What they're doing is they're filtering out to see what all is going on. Let me see if I have zoom in on the server. It doesn't look like I have zoom in on this one. Is that they are filtering to see what status the devices have for the applicability based on updates that were released within that time range. Okay, so what it's doing is it's looking, okay, based on the software updates that were released in this time range for things with the classification workstation that have a class of type workstation. Okay, and there's a couple different places that you can get this. We can pull out the exact chunk that it's choosing for this. So for things of that class, find all the updates and link that together with the update information for that time period and see if all of them have a status of 2. Okay, and then it grades based on that bulk list of all the updates, what percentage of them have a status of 2 and what percentage of them have a status of 3. If all of them have a status of 3, then it's 100%. We've installed all the updates that are applicable for that timeline. If some of them have a status of 2, then whatever that percentage math is, that's the percentage of updates that are missing and how it takes away from that graph. Does that kind of make sense in here? So the reason why you can get kind of some not quite so clear data or 100% understanding here is if an update gets aged out, right? If updates get aged out by supersedence logic, then all the updates that could possibly be installed for this time period are installed because there's no updates in the database that need to be installed, so it'll say 100%. So you bring up a really good point. It's always good to understand what data goes on inside of a report in here. And in this case, the data and where that's pulling from and how that makes sense is all coming from this view right here. I'm actually going to put that in the chat since I can't quite do zoom in on this server. It doesn't look.
I just put zoom in on the root of C if you want to launch it.
Ah, fantastic. Thank you. Go here. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. There we go. That'll make life a little bit better. So all this is doing is it's querying this information from here to get all the status information, where status is what determines if an update is installed or not. 3 would indicate that it's installed. 2 would indicate that it is required currently. Okay, and this is the view that it's taking that data from. If we come in here, we can actually go in and we can look at that data set and see how that data set is being calculated inside of Report Builder for it in order to figure that out and then calculate out those percentages for the bar graphs. And what it's then doing is it's linking that data back against this to figure out when the updates came out, back against the update info, which contains the title information as well as date release revised information. And it's doing it against all the updates, not necessarily just third party, based on the parameters that are chosen in this page. So against the collection name, all desktops and server clients, go find all the updates that are applicable and then apply that filtering and logic to it. That kind of answers the question on what those different updates and what those different elements mean?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, I think, going to take time.
Yeah, so definitely feel free to reach out and set up a support call if you want to talk more into the reporting side of things. Be more than happy to talk through it. It is kind of a confusing process, and it's a lot of data that's being mixed together. Most of the data is coming from that v_gs update compliance table and that v_update info table. And then it's being merged together with how the machines are in order to track it.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome, Jordan. And one thing to note, this is report dashboard 3. I know your question was on 1 and 2, but there is kind of a cool feature on the dashboard for 3 when you hover over it will show you for that 63% how many are installed or compliant and how many are missing. So that's kind of a nice visual. Maybe we could add that hover to report 1 and 2 as well. But that's a good way to kind of think about it. For the machines that I selected, for the updates and categories I selected, the 63% is essentially 29 software updates were compliant on those machines you chose, and 17 are still missing for that month. Cool. Alrighty. I think that was our live question. All right, Cody, this one's for you.
Yeah, awesome. So some of us are lucky enough to have a test environment. So if the rest of us did a trial and it wasn't a good fit, how's the cleanup process, or are we looking to nuke and pave the SUSDB? So you definitely don't have to nuke and pave the SUSDB. I'm an advocate for basically never doing that, almost under any circumstances. We do have an article actually that covers up how to clean up updates from SCCM, and that's not even just limited to our third-party updates. This tool can be used to clean up other vendors' third-party updates. That's something we commonly do, is assist customers with removing, whether it's maybe Dell updates, HP, other vendors, and additionally, you can absolutely use this tool to remove our updates from your configuration manager environment as well. And Justin did just put the link to this article in here. So when you remove all updates under a category, WSUS automatically removes the category. So this tool is going to let you remove all of our updates from your environment, and then the category will automatically delete itself. And then the next time you do a sync, ConfigMan is going to also remove that category.
Cool.
And we've had there are circumstances where certain vendors do very weird things in WSUS. We have some separate tools that can help clean up those scenarios as well, but it would be a support case type scenario for us.
Cool. Any follow-up to that, Grant, if you're on the call, or is that good? Cool. Alrighty, we'll jump to the next live question. Here we go. All right, GoPrep. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that too bad. Do you want to come off on mute and ask your question?
Yep. So we actually are fairly new to PatchMyPC. It was essentially implemented last month. So we're still kind of learning as we go. So my question is more about the ADRs. How safe, or is there like, more essentially in terms of best practice, or do we have a list of products that are like safe to go with ADRs, essentially because different applications would have, like, they introduce more and more features. So we probably have to be a little more cautious in terms of installing new versions. Essentially there was like a recent discussion we had about Citrix Workspace. So the kind of applications have to have some, back-end server-side changes also done as we upgrade to newer versions. So do you have something like published or something in terms of best practices or safer applications we go with ADR? So that's kind of my question.
This is a tough one, right? So here's the thing. Every environment is so wildly different that there's no possible way to give you even an okay practice. There's a ton of environments where it's perfectly fine to update every browser every day, as long as the user's not interrupted and they're not going to care. And there's a lot of environments where those run call centers and it's a critical downtime that loses a company millions of dollars. And that same scenario is going to play across many of the applications in our catalog. So it's going to be difficult for us to recommend a list of software. We do see a few sort of more high level recommendations where you might say, talk to your company, talk to CAB. Can you roll out critical and security on a short 2 to 3 day rollout, and standard updates on a 3-week rollout type stuff, right? It's all very business specific. So it's going to be tough. We are more than willing to get on some Q&A calls and maybe chat with you, regarding your environment specifically, maybe give some recommendations. But sometimes you can start to find a balance, right? With some of our features like manage conflicting processes, where it is okay to start getting a little bit more aggressive with your deadlines, because you can prompt users and be pretty interactive and give them some chances, to close and save their changes and such. So It depends.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because I mean, the application X may not be a big deal for company, Y, but maybe that's a mission critical for this other company that's using that same product. So I think that was a great explanation. And one thing to note, you still have all the same functionality with third-party updates that you would have with Microsoft updates. So you could still, stagger out deadlines. You could have multiple different collections where you get broader with more deadlines. Kind of staggers longer. So it's going to depend. But hopefully, was that kind of helpful at least for some of that?
Yep, it was. I kind of thought so too, but I was kind of thinking if there is something that's been learned over the years, and as you guys hear from customers, to see if there's.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is, I think what everyone's going to say is it's very difficult to have a blanket like a best practice for every org, right? Because every org is completely different. And it's one of the problems that Microsoft runs into. It's one of the problems that everyone's going to run into. What works for you may not work for everyone. So it's very difficult to sort of have that standard.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I can give an example, a recent example of that. Actually, the conversation was around Google Chrome, where there was an organization that they had built apps that were dependent on that specific version of Google Chrome. And if Google Chrome automatically updated, then those apps stopped working. And so they had to go through change control. Most of the other organizations, no, it doesn't matter what version, it was automatically updating before. So it doesn't matter what it is in the future. So it's really hard to set those.
Yeah, and in general, when you look at Microsoft patching, right, there's a known release cycle. Well, we'll say a known release cycle, right? There's a lot of caveats there, but there's a known release cycle. There's Patch Tuesday. There are vendors that do have relatively regular cycles. We see vendors release patches pretty regularly, but there's a lot of variants. There's a lot of vendors. So even ADRs can be interesting to pin down for third-party updates. How often do you want to deploy these patches? You could miss a patch by weeks with an ADR from a third-party vendor because they might decide to randomly release one on a cycle that you're not really privy to.
Yeah, and here's a good example of that with Chrome. So this month Chrome announced, hey, we're going to start releasing even faster than we were before, which was already up to 1 to 2 times a week. So to say, I would say for Chrome, we see a lot of people are okay with deploying that quicker because for the most part, it updates pretty solid and it even updates while in use generally pretty well. And most of their updates happen to be like CVEs and security vulnerabilities. So that's one where a lot of companies might have ADRs that run much quicker with much more aggressive deadlines, for example. Okay, cool. All right, so that's the live. All right, looks like this one is me. So is there any progress on a remote console for the publishing service? We have privileged access applying to our servers, so it's complex if you have to log in via the console. So this is a great question. We do know this is a very common request. So when we think about things like this internally, it comes down to how do we prioritize requests. So we do know a remote console is a pretty popular user voice, but we also know that that's going to be a lot of engineering time. So it comes down to, for example, if we're looking at a roadmap, how do we prioritize, say, remote console, which maybe takes a couple thousand engineering hours versus maybe another feature that's also highly requested that may take like 50 hours, for example. So at this point, specific to your remote console question, it's kind of a priority thing. Now, one of the things that we try to make our product, from a like feature and kind of day-to-day use perspective, we try to make it so that you don't really have to come in here all that often. So once you set up a sync schedule, it's not all that common that we find customers coming back and having to make changes because it's going to be fully automated. We even include features like automatically enabling new products based on them being detected. So let's say that there's even a new product that comes out next week and you have the auto filter that says if 10 machines in my environment need it, I'm going to automatically enable it. So even in that scenario, you would never have to come back into our tool for enabling a new product. it would just automatically flow into Configuration Manager, and your day-to-day would be in here. So it's kind of a priority thing specific to your remote console question. We do know another question that often comes up with our remote console is like a cloud portal for Intune. Also one that's going to be a lot of engineering, but we know that that's going to be kind of a big feature that we want to look out kind of longer term. Hopefully that was helpful. If you're on the call, Lee, if you want to come off on mute, if you have any follow-up or any additional thoughts on that.
Hello. Yeah, I'm on. No, I don't have anything following up. So it's
cool.
It's great that it's sort of been seen and seen as a possible use case. So it's great that it's on the
for sure
on the plans.
Thank you. How often do you find that within your organization you actually have to remote in and run our console to make configuration changes? It's pretty common, or not so?
In a way, yes, because we're quite new. We're sort of only about a year into using PatchMyPC, so we are still slowly growing our product base. But it's probably once every couple of weeks that we have to go into the console.
Now,
and like I say, because we now have this privileged access management system to actually get to servers, it's a complex operation to get in.
So when you go into the console, what do you typically do? Are you like scanning to see if there's anything new? Are you enabling products or changing like right-click options? Like what's the typical kind of workflow for needing to go back in?
So the typical one, specifically for us, is that we've been moving away from some app-v apps and using native either setup XEs or MSIs to be able to utilize this tool. So this tool has helped us tremendously with keeping third-party products up to date. They were previously app-v'd and very rarely getting updated.
So it's mostly checking products like that you want to turn on.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good to know. Good to know.
Thank you.
Ready, Jordan.
So this one was around providing patch details and CVE information for the criticality and updates. Today, actually, I think Justin's going to showcase it here. For customers that have it installed in Configuration Manager, we do actually provide a way that you can take a vulnerability scan from one of the different vulnerability scans out there, and as long as it matches an appropriate format, you can actually take that in, and we will parse through all of the data, and basically we scrape out the CVE information to match it up against what is in that list to what we provide in the catalog. So you could take this list that you would get from your security team. Security would go run their scan, and they'd get you this CSV, and they walk over and they drop it on your desk, right? And you take it, you could put it in here, and you'd be able to find out what patches from that vulnerability scan we have available to start pushing out and pushing to those clients. So one of the things that we were talking about in kind of this question is this, and I'm not sure if the person who asked the question if they're on the call, but does this kind of cover what that was looking for there? Is it how we provide that, or was there something further that you were looking for specifically around that?
Yeah. So how did you get to the screen? Did you like import that?
So right here,
yeah.
If you click this little lock icon in the Updates tab, that brings up this screen. You can then point out to a CSV file that you want to scan, list the CVEs for, and then you just click Process. This will search products that are in our catalog, so even if you don't have them enabled, they will show up here. It will also search products that already have been published to WSUS. So for example, Google Chrome 64-bit, we can see this one is published. These are available, meaning it's in the catalog, but it doesn't actually exist. And that's because it's the 32-bit version of Chrome. And I have not enabled that one yet. So does this seem to cover that? Like I know you mentioned like products that are not yet syncing. This will cover that. Even if they're not enabled, you can at least see them. Is this kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah. So essentially like before, I think like because we implemented this like last month or so, so we are fairly new. So we had the previous product that we were using that used to provide the CVE information in the console itself. So I was trying to get a better hold of like if I need to get that information more in terms of like which product should I patch sooner rather than later. How do I get that sort of information?
So that's a good one. So if you're specific, so for updates that you've published, one thing that we do include are things like severity level. So under classification and severity level, we do mark both of these. So if a update has a CVE, we will typically mark it with a critical severity level. So if you wanted to actually change the way that you deploy updates based on criteria like CVEs or classifications, you can do that. For example, I don't know if you're using our Microsoft Teams alerts as well, but if you do have the Teams alert enabled within our tool, you do also get notified as updates get published, and that will include if they had CVEs. In addition to that, we do also include CVE data within the description of every update as well. So for example, we can see that Chrome update that I just copied from Teams. I can actually search for that CVE, and that will be within the description. So if you wanted to use like an ADR and say, show me PatchMyPC updates as a vendor and where the description contains CVE, you could even have like a separate ADR that would be, quicker deployments if you wanted to based on having a CVE. So there's quite a few things you can do in that scenario.
Okay, makes sense. I was trying to see like more in terms of more in PatchMyPC's own publisher console, but I think it makes sense just to use ConfigMgr itself if you have the information.
So like, is there something that may not be in the feature today where we go and scan CVEs and show you the updates that we know have them? Is there something in addition to what you're seeing in this PatchMyPC UI that you would want?
No, I think with this information I can access from ConfigMgr once the patches are brought in. I think that information is good enough for now. I was because we're fairly new, I was trying to see how that information is accessible.
So this is not just for updates that have been published to ConfigMgr. This will also list any updates that have CVEs within our catalog, even if they're not published. So this could be a way that even if you don't have a product enabled, you could scan your environment and see if we have any updates in our catalog, like out of the 400 and some third-party products. Even if they're not there, this CVE scan will evaluate those and let you know as well.
Makes sense.
Cool.
One other thing, Justin, before you click away from that, would you just kind of click on the CVE import wizard docs down there, just as kind of a thing? It's kind of hidden down there, but there is a document on here for different formats or everything on that too, just from a follow-up perspective. And just as a thing, there's a lot of blue hyperlinks all throughout the publisher. And just don't be afraid to click on those too, because they have a lot of extra information there too to follow up reading on as well, just as kind of information things. So
sure.
You please put the link in the chat as well.
It's there. Yep, just included it.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. All right. Yeah. So this is a good one. So could we? It's basically kind of asking from what I got from the question, and if Paul's on the call, you can come off mute and we can chat a bit about this. It sounds like you're looking for basically an ROI justification for like how many products, for example, you've published. Is that right?
Hey, Justin, this is Paul. Yes, that's correct. We had a previous product that I don't want to mention the name. I'm sure a lot of people know that. But what I want to do is to justify to my senior management and my executive council that the amount of time that we have used to ask my packages to manually package updates and deploy through SCCM, can be automated through ADRs, and that's what we are doing. I think my colleague Andy is on the line as well. He's the leading guy on this. To justify the ROI versus, okay, how much does it cost us from a manual packaging perspective, amount of hours spent versus the dollar cost that PatchMyPC brings, and that's a really good justification for renewal as well at the end of the year.
Yeah, totally get it. So let me see if I can. pull up something that we're working on. So we do have an ROI doc. So this covers kind of your scenario on explaining the value. Now, what we're currently doing, and just give me a moment, I should have had this up already. I'm going to see if I can give you an example of kind of what we're working on.
If I can jump the gun a little bit,
Sure.
I know my colleague Andy was working on, and I think we can kind of pull out a CSV file of the patch history per application that comes in, because this might be custom for organization to organization, right? I mean, we have, let's say, 37 applications that we update. Another company may have 20 or 40 or 300. I was just trying to see that, is there an easier way rather than the CSV file as well to kind of pull it out? I don't know if you have like a specific report module, say, hey, you know what, for your organization, we've distributed X amount of updates per application for this time period, so to speak, rather than having to do the legwork.
Yep. Yeah. So one thing that, here, I'm about to send a screenshot. So this is something that we've started implementing both for our renewal emails. Let me just pull out the company name so it's a bit more generic here. So when you get a renewal email, we will let you know based on data how many total updates, applications, and CVEs that you've published. So this is something that could help you justify, kind of the value that you're getting, the amount of time that you're saving. So these will be in any renewal emails. As long as you're using our publisher, you'll be able to see this data. Now, the kind of the larger project that we're working on internally is, let me see if I've got it up here. Yeah, here we go. Let me just screenshot this, and I will see if I can block out some of this data real quick. But we want to give like a portal where you can get some basic telemetry data. So we don't collect a whole lot of info, but there are a few small items. If somebody could include the KB for what we include, that would probably be pretty helpful. But we want to start giving some of the relevant data where you can see it right in a portal. So for example, let me just block this out. So we're thinking about something like this. So some basic info. So this is one of our test labs where it would show you, how long you've been a customer, but probably the more important things are, how have you used our product? How many updates have you published? How many apps have you created? How many CVEs have you actually published into your site? So is something like this, would this data be helpful? And maybe, once we actually get it ready, maybe give some charts with trends, something like that. Is that kind of what you're looking for here?
Exactly. Yeah, that'll be brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Send me an email. Justin, I'll include in the chat as well.
All right.
So I'd be interested in talking to you to make sure like we give you the data that's actually valuable for you. But yeah, totally.
I really like that because I can share what we do from a manual process, so to speak, today. Because I give quarterly updates to my senior management. I can show you what we are doing and get your thoughts and ideas as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I did include the ROI link as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So that kind of is like, so a lot of our customers or even pre-sales, like the engineering team that's trying to pitch it to management, it kind of gives some of the benefits of the product, but actually seeing how many apps you published, how many hours you saved is definitely going to be a key piece. And yeah, something we're trying to provide for that as well.
Super. Cheers.
Cool. All right, live question. Do we have anybody with a hand up? Let's take a look. Okay, Lucas Miller, do you want to come off on mute?
Yes. So mine's kind of more of a follow-up to what we just were talking about, the ROI. Also, there's a way that we could look at justifying, changing from just an enterprise license to the enterprise plus, of like helping us work of going to say, that automated patching and the updating of both the on-prem config manager and Intune would be a way that, how we can justify and look at going, okay, here's the cost savings because currently we're not doing automated updates in there. We're doing a manual process with PatchMyPC. So now we're trying to look at, okay, if we were to go to this going in there better, how can we, what type of savings are we going to get, and, you know, justify the cost difference like everybody wants to know.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There was someone in the community that kind of had this. They had a dedicated app packager, right? And they only had a small number of applications that they were currently packaging. So they would package their core business third-party apps, you know, whether it be some browsers, maybe an image editor, or whatever it might be. And so they were kind of okay with that. And part of that is going to be, if you're patching the software, right? You already have enterprise licensing, for example, or maybe you have basic, and you're patching. You can look at the list of applications you're patching, and you've already got a little bit of insight into what you could be packaging. So if those applications got on your devices, one of a few things happened. Either you did already package it, which cost you time and money, or you had a tech manually log onto a machine and give somebody admin credentials, which cost you time and money, or your users have admin already, which is going to cost you time and money. So at the end of the day, right, if you're patching third-party software, it's probably in your best interest to start managing that third-party software from a deployment perspective as well. I don't have like actual cost ROI on that, but I could definitely see how it's a good discussion that you could kind of bring up, right? There's a direct relation to packaging an app and patching an app. And if you're only doing one of those, you can definitely argue that both is probably in your best interest.
Right. So that's kind of like what we're looking at is how do we make and convince upper management to justify the cost of transitioning from those type of licensing models to go up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so when we came out with Enterprise Plus back in it looks like April 2019, the big piece there was we had customers that were kind of worried, like, right? So let's say that they packaged an app, right? But if they were only patching it, they would either have to keep that app up to date, right? So they would have to keep repackaging it, or they would have to wait until ConfigMgr does its software update point scan in order to actually get it updated. So even in addition to obviously the time savings that you would get from a application packaging perspective, there's also some security benefits there if you're not updating your base apps today, because it would be, when do those apps get installed? Is it a task sequence, or is it a user doing it in Software Center? Then you have to factor in how long would they be running that outdated application before the software update scan cycles kind of apply, potential maintenance windows, deadlines, before they're actually secure with the latest version. So, I mean, that could be a factor as well, not just the time, but how long would it take you to get up to date if you were deploying an old version to start with and then waiting for our third-party update if you're only on Enterprise. So that could be another way to think about it as well. But, I think it'll be different for each org. Like, how do they value time? How many apps do you have that you're patching? But the ROI doc that I included would probably be a decent start, both for the applications and packaging, because the time savings there are going to be very similar for each of those as well. Is that helpful?
It is.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, if there's any way I can help, feel free to reach out. But yeah, hopefully the time and security would be probably a good place to start, I think, from like a value perspective for approval. Jake.
Yeah, so this question, can we include Office patches? Now, Rajneesh, I hope I didn't mess that name up. If you're on the call, feel free to come off mute. But is there a specific reason why you'd want to manage that from PatchMyPC as opposed to doing it in the ConfigMan console or through WoofB or through Intune directly? Because all of those features are currently already there within those respective tools. Doesn't sound like he's here. But yeah, so all of those, like as it stands today, we don't have any plans on adding any like Office patches or Windows patches into our product. Because again, what we're doing is we're just integrating with what's already there with ConfigMan and Intune. So there wouldn't be a real huge value add to do that through our, console or publisher versus just doing it with the tools that you already have at hand.
Yeah. if there's any other people that have a similar use case, like if you wanted to come off mute and kind of let us know what's the scenario for that, feel free to come off as well.
Yeah, because we get this question a lot.
So we're trying to understand like what is that? What's missed there? What's that use case? Okay, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like anyone is. Okay, cool. So hopefully that at least answered the question. All right, let's go ahead and take another one. Anthony Farino, if you want to come off unmute.
Good Friday to you all.
Yeah, happy Friday.
First, let me thank you guys. All you guys are wonderful, and your contributions to the community as a whole has been wonderful. Justin, your guides are basically training for anyone that I consider helping me.
That's awesome. Glad to hear.
But Mike, to get to the question, in our environment, we have several small subsidiaries, and while our main organization uses ConfigMan and all of its capabilities, these smaller subsidiaries are typically like 10, 15, 20 machines, and they're separated entirely for various reasons that I won't get into, but they'll use Intune. And right now, we can only do one Intune tenant in the publishing tool.
Okay. I got it.
And it's not feasible to buy a license for 300 machines, or I think that, or whatever the minimum is, for a small subsidiary that's 20 machines.
Okay, so couple things here. So multi-tenant publishing, we do know is a big request, and it's going to be something that we start looking into and kind of see how long it's going to take. So having the ability to publish from one publisher installed to multiple tenants is definitely something that we'll be looking at to see what we can do there. Now, the second question was, I'm not sure if this is, let me know if this is where you're coming from, but if you're kind of the same company and you have just, sub companies or, what basically reporting to the same parent, you can use a single publisher or a single license, and you can publish to multiple environments, whether it's ConfigMgr environments, Intune environments, multiple different tenants, as long as the device count that you're licensed for would cover all your companies that report to the same parent. Was that more of the question?
Yeah, I was not aware. So that would just be another instance of the publishing tool?
Yep, exactly, yeah.
And could that be on the same server, or would it need its own?
Today, yeah, it would need to be on its own with the way the service runs. But we are trying to think about, that multi-tenant scenario. But as far as licensing goes, I know you mentioned kind of mid-price and stuff like that. Totally fine to have a single subscription as long as it's the same company, and use it in multiple different environments or sub-companies or, entities.
And could we run that publishing tool on a child sub?
Yep. Yeah. Well, would this be for WSUS, or are you talking about Intune for that?
For Intune specifically.
Yeah, and you could even run on Windows 10 if you wanted. It doesn't even need to be a server for Intune. You could
let me jump in there. I'm not going to overextend our promises to anything, but with Intune, one of the benefits is we're not reliant on a sub, so it can literally run on anything as long as it's got access to the internet. So the sort of, I guess, the internal hope.
So if these child orgs had just a file server sitting there, we could run it on that.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be on a server. It just needs to be on a thing with internet, ideally with Windows 10 or something with access to the .NET libraries that we use.
And RSAT.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not difficult to do what everyone's sort of hoping will eventually happen. And I'm already overextending, so I'm gonna drop and mute myself.
Yeah, no, and we're also, I'm not gonna commit to anything like Ben was saying, but we might have what is it called, Ben? An ARM template or something where you can get a VM spun up a little quicker in Azure if you wanted to get our stuff set up.
Yeah, we've been playing around with going back on that idea that you don't need a physical device, or you don't need it doesn't need to be server infrastructure, or it doesn't need to be a physical device. we've been playing around with the idea of just creating templates that you can very quickly provision and instantiate a thing with our software on it with your specific licensing and your application or AAD framework on it. It's basically working at this point. But the idea is that you can just very quickly go, I want PatchMyPC to be built in my tenant now without really touching it. And at this point, because there's very little infrastructure requirements, it's quite easy to set that up.
Cool. All right. Next question was plans to provide updates for drivers bias. So we get this quite a bit. I'm curious the use case. So there is built-in packaging for drivers or patching for drivers built using the console. And they've done quite a bit of improvements lately where they can now categorize it so you're not publishing like every single driver from Dell, HP, or Lenovo. We don't have plans today. Wes, I'm not sure how your internet is doing. Did you want to chime in here at all? I did have it tagged for you.
Yeah, I can patch in. What was the question again?
So supporting drivers. I know we have our FAQ up here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So as far as drivers from the OEMs out there, they still do a really good job. It's built in within the ConfigMgr console, and it's basically integrating within Microsoft. We hope at some point in time we may be in the same situation there, but for the most part, they handle it really well, and we don't really have any I guess inclinations to do that, to have those within our product, because they can really be handled within the ConfigMgr console very, very well.
So Jeff, if you're on the call, I'm just kind of curious because we get the question quite a bit. Is there a use case? Is there something that doesn't work well if you're using it in the console, or is it just not great quality? Like, what's kind of the use case for that?
Yeah, the use case is specifically around updating BIOS.
Okay.
And we have a lot of models, and what we need to do, because you usually provide those right-click features where you can do pre and post customizations, we need to, for the BIOS updates, we need to set a password for different departments, and we also need to turn off encryption before we apply. And this is Dell's recommendation that we do that before we apply BIOS and firmware updates. And right now, what we would have to do if we used a Dell catalog is we have to use the SCUP tool to edit each month those new updates and put in a custom command line with the password. And it's just a lot of work that we don't have time to do.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I got it.
Do you have to change the passwords? Did you say you have to change the passwords every month, or?
No, we have to. The BIOS update won't proceed if it doesn't have the password in the command line.
Yeah, so basically you have to have the password, let it run, and then unsuspend BitLocker and re-enable BitLocker and do a number of things. Are you using their tool to create those install scripts? Yeah. And would it be one of those things to also where you could limit how many of these updates come down? Because I know a lot of times it gets flooded in there with all the metadata and things coming in when you're just importing those in. I'm just wondering if that could be something else. The reason why.
Yeah, we are limiting them, but even limiting, we still have a ton of models. And recently, BIOS and firmware updates have been coming out really fast, and we just don't have the manpower to keep up with it. And the less we have to customize each month, the better it's going to be for us.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, this is interesting. I get the use case and why it won't work natively with custom command lines and passwords. Okay, this is good to know. So yeah, we don't have plans to do it today. Let's say just hypothetically, even though we're not planning to look at it, this would be something that, let's say it's a different tier, an additional value add. Would you see the value there for an add-on or something like that? Because I'm thinking about our engineering time, what it would actually take if we ever did even entertain the idea of trying to go through these different models and testing and things like that. Is that?
I see the only problem here being that all these computer makes they all change the BIOS command parameters, right? So you may do something and then next week later they change up the parameter to be BIOS-1 or something. So password dash something.
Vendors change this stuff very rapidly. Most of the vendors provide tools, and those tools have various kind of features that handle some of the password bits and pieces. Sometimes they will handle suspending BitLocker. It's gonna be tough for us to confidently implement this, right? Yeah.
Even though tools can keep up with their own hardware, so
Yeah. And I know HP does a lot of things per OS level too. Whenever, say, for different versions, if it comes out with a different level of Windows 10 OS, then they'll have all their different versions will have a different new load, so it builds it up pretty quick too.
Okay, let's do Peter. Do you want to come off mute? Might not be there. How about Julio? Do you want to come off on mute? Julio?
Yeah, hi, Justin. Yes, that's an interesting point that you guys just brought up on drivers update. I think that would be something very usable if we implement something like that, not with an SCCM, because SCCM I think pretty much has it, but maybe with an Intune to be able to do those drivers updates. I know they're a pain in the neck, but it would be interesting to have something like that for Intune.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay. It's funny, like when I hear it, I start thinking like, how could we do this? Like all the challenges.
Yeah, because I
see the value.
This is what we do. We should.
Yeah, I don't think there is a way of how to do this with an Intune. Right?
Certainly not natively, unless some. I know some.
It's coming.
I know some vendors publish some driver updates out to like Windows Update for Business already. But yeah, I think there is some improvements.
They're improving that dramatically. There's here, paste the article.
Yeah,
so they're going to let you
today,
control.
Lenovo's. Yep.
Yeah,
I think one of the control the driver deployments.
Yeah, one of the big things that's been happening over the last couple of years is that a lot of the big hardware manufacturers have actually been providing their drivers to Microsoft as first-party driver updates. So they're not classified as third-party drivers, so they actually come through as updates through the cumulative update cycle. It's a big thing, and it gets to a point where in the last 3 years, doing rollouts, I've never needed to worry about driver updates, with the big caveat that everything I've done has been greenfields. So I get to play with the shiny new toys, not the old stuff.
Yeah, and I have machines, my personal machine, I have it for about 3 years already. I never updated any drivers for it, and it still works fine. However, though, we do have occasionally some users that have issues with their camera drivers or speaker drivers, and we need to update them. And it would be a good
fine.
idea.
They don't need sound.
Yeah,
it's all good.
I mean,
sound's not important.
Yeah.
Well, and so there's also complicating factors like manufacturers are releasing drivers that are Apex packages now.
Yep.
And it's insane trying to like follow along with all that.
Yeah. So I see it. So the whole reason this is complicated is why, if somebody did it right, it would be kind of a cool thing to get right. So I totally get the use case. I do think this question, I think we did answer this one. This might have been a live question as well. Like basically, what's the value of Enterprise Plus and app management? So I'll skip over that one unless there was maybe something, if you want to come off on mute, if there's something we didn't cover in that first question, but I think we did cover that one. Okay. Andrew, so you want to cover this one?
Yeah, sure. So are you planning to support upgraded apps? For example, Nitro Pro from 12 to 13, of course, with license management. So we don't have any sort of like plans to do this like natively within the tool. What you can use to facilitate facilitate these kind of upgrades is use our ConfigMgr apps feature or the Intune apps feature to push out the new version. We don't do that on purpose because we don't know what licenses you guys have. So what we do when we package a new app, we follow the default options that the app gives you. The only thing that we're going to add to an app by default is to make it silent. So if when it updates or when it installs a newer version, if it doesn't remove the older version, we're not going to do that for you because we don't know your use case. So typically there's a reason why apps won't upgrade themselves and remove the old version first. And typically that's for licensing reasons, or sometimes certain versions only work with certain like files that they create, stuff like that. So we don't do any of that by default. Sometimes we'll provide the option to remove older versions, like with Java. But for the most part, we're going to keep the default behavior of the application. So yeah, within the updates tab through WSUS updates, I don't see us ever providing a way to like do a clean upgrade for products like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and kind of same scenario with the licensing.
So basically, basically with updates, the base application is still there always, no?
Yeah, so you could still do the base application through ConfigMgr apps. I think Bruce just brought up a good point that you can supersede apps. You could use the supersedence feature and supersede the old version of the app to upgrade the application itself, because we do provide uninstalls for just about every one of our apps. I'm actually going through the process of testing all the apps, and we've done some improvements for the uninstalls as well to make sure that the uninstalls work. So you can totally utilize that feature to perform your upgrades.
Yeah, I use supersede every day, indeed. Yeah. Yeah. But no, the thing is that what is dangerous is when you have require applications, and then you can have the funny thing of pinpoint installing base installations and updates, and it can be a nightmare if you really don't care. You don't be really careful with your detection methods and the type of application you're deploying.
Yeah, that's a good point. So probably one of the bigger issues that we see with customers that create their own apps is if they use a detection method that only points to a specific MSI code, and let's say that we update an application to a newer one, it's not uncommon if they packaged an app to see it like revert back to the old one. So that's certainly something to keep in mind for sure. Okay. Cool. All right. So this question was, how does PatchMyPC compare to? There was a kind of like a different tool in here. So for the most part, like we do have an FAQ about comparisons, competitors, and things like that. And to be honest, like kind of the way that we typically go here is we don't compare or really pay a whole lot of attention to what our competitors are doing. So when we think about like features that we're building and value that we're providing for customers, it's truly based on what do our specific customers need. So this is why, we have our user voice. This is why we pay a lot of attention to that. And also why pretty much all our features in our roadmap come from that customer feedback. So from a comparison perspective, like we do have a data sheet that kind of shows the value of kind of what we do, as well as, kind of the feedback that we pay attention to with customers. But we actually don't really have any specifics. And there's also some community resources where if you are trying to compare to get like community feedback to see what people are actually saying, we think there's probably more merit looking at like what people are saying in the community as well as our customers based on reviews than us saying, hey, we're better because X, Y, Z. We really just try to focus on how can we, reduce friction for customers and pay attention to how we can meet their needs. And we really don't have any comparisons or things for other specific companies. So hopefully that helps. But we don't have like a great, hey, this is X, Y, Z, what we do differently, because we really don't know what those people are, what those competitors are doing. We only know what our customer needs and what we're trying to build for that feedback. Okay, so raise hand. It looks like Rustam Press. Do you want to come up on mute? Still had one.
Yes, can you hear
Yep.
me? I just wanted to ask or follow up on this driver firmware, eventually BIOS upgrades, because in our environment, we're doing everything. We also have imaging, from different organizations. So we also maintain a test sequence for the images. And what I was more interested that these drivers and BIOS and stuff, it could be, if it was also could be included in test sequence, for the new model you want to deploy.
The Microsoft drivers certainly could be. They're just a software update. So if you're publishing third-party updates from ConfigMgr, there's no reason why you couldn't update while the machines are being deployed via a task sequence for sure. Yep.
So you can what do you say? You can include this package for a vendor, and that's it.
Yeah. So you could just subscribe to the third-party updates. Under our FAQs, can somebody paste the FAQ for drivers as well, just to make sure we have it. This will kind of go through the process of how to enable the drivers. Andrew, if you could also include the driver session that we did for the last virtual system management user group, that would get you up and running, and then those drivers simply become a software update, and then you could deploy those software updates to the collection that you're using for your task sequence, and you could actually apply those drivers updates kind of natively when those machines are on board. Yeah.
I will say that they won't install before, they won't install in the WinPE section. They'll install after the OS is installed. So if the driver needs to be there for the OS install to occur, it's not going to be there for you, because you can't install it during the WinPE phase.
Yeah. And that's pretty uncommon though, that you would need. Usually for WinPE, it might just be NIC drivers if it's missing.
Yeah.
So
nowadays.
So and with later versions of PE, I think that's generally not really an issue. So should work pretty well, I think. Yeah. Okay, next one for Ben. How does PatchMyPC interact with Microsoft Intune?
I can answer this with one word and then go to sleep. We interact with Intune through Graph.
Yep.
Do we want more detail about that?
I don't think so. So basically just Microsoft Graph, right? So it's their API. It's how we do everything. And I know it's 3:30 for Ben a.m. over in Australia, so he's
on Saturday.
No, sorry, I was being a little bit sassy. But look, honestly, everything that we do within our publisher for Intune is leveraged and possible purely because of Microsoft Graph. And I've done many sessions and demos and all sorts of things about how just these two links make everything that we do possible. It's just the pure fact is that it's cloud-based management, so there needs to be some kind of extensible framework around it. That extensible framework is Graph. Yep. So all we're doing is registering that application, which we've got at the top there, and then from there we just it's very well documented. So what we're doing is complicated within reason. But yeah, it just makes it very easy.
I think something to note is there are things that are not publicly doable in Graph right now. So we've had some requests that wouldn't have actually been possible 6 months ago that we've been able to fulfill recently. So that's something to keep in mind too. Almost everything is available via the public Graph APIs, but it's got limitations.
Cool. Awesome. Alrighty, so last question we have before we jump into demo and maybe one more live was, is Java available? So within our publisher, we do have Java. So quite a few different versions of Java. It would work very much like other apps. And we do also have a lot of the open source Javas as well. So for example, things like the Adopt Open JDKs, like if you're moving from Java because it's now paid, quite a few different runtimes. Actually, all three of these are kind of alternatives now to Java using the open source. So yep, it's definitely available. You can publish Java today, even if you're still on Oracle's version, and that should work perfectly fine. So it actually looks like there's no hands raised. So we actually just went through all the pre-Q&As. So now we'll go in and kind of look at our new product demo feature, if you will. So first of all, big thanks to everybody that...
We have a winner.
Whoa, did I miss it? Oh, no, there it is.
Justin
No, this
forgot
is
it.
the
No,
slide.
it's right there.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't even know what it is.
I have no idea. Cool. All right, so it looks like... yeah, Joshua, it looks like won. So just shoot me an email and we'll get you the prize. We actually see, I don't know if my camera's showing up, but Mowgli's hanging out down here as well. Cool. Yeah, so first of all, I just want to thank everybody for their questions for kind of the first part of this call. I know hopefully you guys got quite a bit of value from being able to interact with the team. I know that for us, we almost, I would say for sure, get kind of the most value from this call. So we're certainly grateful that you guys took the time out of your day to give us this feedback, let us know kind of what features you're interested in, what's working, what's not. But the second half of the call is going to be kind of the update for new features. So this will be things that have come out over the last 1 to probably 3 months. And we do hope to have this AMA kind of recurring, where maybe every couple months we do it, and we also cover some of the new features that we've released to make sure that you're kind of aware of what's going on, what's changed. So the first one, we'll be kind of coming back in on one of the questions that somebody asked about the new user notifications. So to show you what that looks like, this has been out, I believe, for probably about maybe a month now. Would you guys say maybe a little less for the user?
Yeah.
So
I think a month sounds good.
So the scenario is like, what happens if a user has a application open and it needs to be closed in order for the update to apply successfully? So the way that this used to work is we had 2 options. You could either auto close the app or you could skip it. The new feature that we've added is to give you the ability to actually notify the user if it needs to be closed. So the way it works, if you right-click an application, you can do this at the application level, you can do this at the vendor level, or you can do this at the all products level. Now for this feature, it will mainly make sense at the specific product. So for example, we know and we document that Notepad++, in order for the update to be applied successfully, it does need to be completely closed and not in use. If you click this documentation link on that Manage Conflicting Processes, we do have a list of products that we are tracking that we do know will not update successfully if the end user has it open. This is a list that we're going to keep building on, but these are ones that we do know will have issues. So, for example, if you wanted to give the user a custom notification, you could say, hey, we have an update that's about to be applied. You can give a certain number for timeouts. By default, it's 5 minutes. You can say whether or not you want to show the user the notification even if they're in focus assist mode. You can also choose how many times they can defer it before it force installs. And you can also prevent the user from opening the app while the update is applying. You can also choose a custom image. So this is kind of a fun one that we do on some of our demos where, we just have kind of a GIF of Dunder Mifflin just to show you what it would look like. And you can preview this before you actually deploy it to the end user. So in our case, we can see that we chose an image. If you looked at the default one, it would just look something like this, like, hey, we have an update that's about to apply. So on the client side, we've actually deployed this update and we've got it set for Notepad++ because we know that that's one that will fail if it's open. So I can see, I'm going to go ahead and click install for this software update. We can see that we have Notepad open and running. And here's the notification that I get as an end user. So we can see, I've got 5 minutes. We did allow them to snooze the update. So if they snoozed it, they could have up to 3 times where this would show up again. And then they can choose close and update. That's going to automatically close the app. If I try to open it, you're going to see they're unable to open it because we enabled that block option. And now we can see that we're completely up to date using that notification. So this was a huge user voice request for giving the ability for users to be able to close the application and prompt them in the event that they needed to for it to apply successfully. So that's the first feature. Any questions about that if anyone wants to come off mute? But that's kind of a big one that we worked on quite a bit here.
Does this also work on the Intune side?
It does. Yeah. So this is also
Yes.
available for Intune updates and Intune apps as well, where you can right click and you can you can set those same options.
So we do have a question for enforcing the pop-up whether the application is running as not or not, as well as customizing the body.
What's the use case for showing the pop-up if the app is not opened by the user?
They actually mentioned the use case.
Is in the chat?
A VPN client. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the VPN client. If the VPN client is running,
Hmm.
that actually makes a lot of sense. We've had requests for us to detect a VPN client, but I think just showing like having an option to show the window regardless would cover more things than, oh, we need to detect a VPN client now.
Hmm.
Most VPN clients fall back to Rasdial. It's pretty detectable. So if we wanted to get real nerdy about that, that's the thing we could do.
I was trying to not have to do that.
Yeah, but you work with me now. So.
Do we have a user voice for this code? I feel like we did, or maybe it was a comment in the user voice, right?
We have a user voice for managing a list of processes, I think. We might have one for always show.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, you might have mentioned the comment, right? Always.
Yeah, there it is.
Is that it?
That was actually. There it is.
Okay. So Cody did specifically ask about it. So we should all bother Cody on Twitter and say, get this implemented until it's implemented. Just send him a tweet every day. But okay, so it sounds like we do see the value in this feature, showing a pop-up even if it's not showing
multi-language.
It'll be
localization.
PC.
Okay, localization. So would you just want like a description box where you could enter in a totally custom message, it sounds like? Would that be what you're looking for there?
Yeah, I don't know if you need to customize it. Probably we will, because there are a lot of languages in the world, I think. So I don't think you will provide all translations. But another problem is that the Windows language remains English. However, the user sees everything in this localized version. So and that's sometimes difficult for applications to they mostly see English as the Windows language, but that's not what the user is seeing.
Okay, yeah. Language translation would be a good one. Would you mind? I just pasted in the link for the user voice. Is that one that you could submit just to make sure we get that tracked, as well as other people could show their interest in that? That would be a good one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no problem.
Alrighty, cool. Well, that's the demo. Go ahead.
May I ask a question? Sure. Okay. I used to use the Andrew scripts for the notifications before, and it's a technical question about this feature. At the end, we have to adapt our scripts in order to run on a Windows folders because of the app blocker, because we cannot run a PowerShell in full language mode, only on certain folders. It's just a question that if for running this feature, it's going to run on the Windows folder, or is running on another place in the operating system, because probably we have no choice to run this if it's running in program data or wherever. Andrew.
Question.
Yeah, so this is running using ScriptRunner, which is the same wrapper that we use to actually install the app itself. So I don't believe you should run into any issues. Cody, do you know about it's not the same as my PowerShell script, and it's not even using the Windows notification subsystem. It's using WinForms.
And
they are signed, no? They are signed, of course.
Yes. The ScriptRunner is signed, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's signed, and then also it's going to run from a few different locations. It depends. So if it's a Windows update versus a ConfigMan app versus Intune, right? Those all ultimately get extracted out into different places and will run from different places. But yeah, it's signed.
Great. So good.
Cool. Alrighty, so this is one that Ben coded, so it should be a quick one.
Sweet. Wait, what are we talking about?
Intune featured app.
Oh yeah, that's super easy. So the point here was just to get to, and like one of the big things that I've been doing since I started working at PatchMyPC is I want to make what we've got for Intune at parity to what we've got for ConfigMgr, and this was a pretty obvious one. So we've now just got a right-click option. So any of the products, you can right-click on them, and if you so deem that this application is going to be a featured application within your org, you can select that. And basically what that's going to do is that if you make that application, so this is an important one, it's an application, not an update. If you make that application available through company portal, it will become it will show up in the company portal as a featured application. So it will basically like rise to the top. This will be important if these applications are your like core business apps, things like Zoom, Chrome, one of the 18 different language versions of Firefox. But yeah, so it's it's a pretty important one.
Awesome. Andrew, log retention. So this was actually a request from our last Ask Us Anything from Hajit.
Yeah, so we added this feature, like a month ago. Under the Advanced tab now, if you have the Manage Installation Logging feature turned on, we also have log retention now for those logs. So we default it to 28 days. They have a month to go back and look at those logs. So they shouldn't get too large now. Just can you show the Manage Installation feature? I just want to make sure everyone knows what that feature is. This is honestly my favorite feature because I'm asking for logs all day. So please just turn this thing on. So once you turn this on, we'll actually manage the retention for the logs for 28 days. When ScriptRunner runs, it actually cleans up and removes old logs as well.
Yeah, so these are basically the vendor logs. I thought I enabled it, but I don't think I did.
You didn't have it turned on.
So like, for example, if Google Chrome fails and it's an MSI, you could actually go look at the vendor log. So it's super helpful for troubleshooting. So yeah, definitely a good feature so that those folders don't get like too big if you're never cleaning up. Cool. I think this one is me. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. So this was a request. So if you've ever seen kind of the source structure of where our applications get created. So for example, if I go look at my source folder, applications, let's just take a quick look. Hopefully I don't have all these apps installed already. There we go. So we don't have 7-zip currently. So if I click on 7-zip, the use case here was every once in a while we might have technicians that just install applications one-off. So the way that it used to work is you would have to put in a custom parameter in order to actually install the app. So you couldn't just come in and like click our application would work. Now, if we go ahead and launch our app, it's actually going to perform the installation automatically in the background. So, if you did have kind of a one-off and you didn't want to go through the actual vendor's installation silently or manually through the UI, you can just do a quick run our app and then it will automatically install that. There's no additional command lines or things that you have to add. So kind of a niche use case, but it can be quite helpful if you do just want to get something really quick and you don't have to add the /install parameter into our binary anymore. It just happens. All right. Go ahead.
You missed something. It will respect the XML configuration if you had MSTs or whatever.
That's correct. Yep. Any custom command lines or anything that you had would still be applied. Yep.
Okay.
There is a second feature on that slide, Justin.
Oh, the uninstalls. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. So go back a slide. So we use ScriptRunner to do our uninstalls of software, and we ultimately parse the uninstall hives in the registry to find uninstallers, but there are actually a few variations of what that looks like. So sometimes installers have a quiet uninstall string in the registry, and that can be taken into consideration. And additionally, there is a system component registry value that you will see in the registry. So some apps, like Python, for example, if you go look through the uninstall hives, it's listed like 12 times by default with an install, but it only shows up in add remove programs once. And that's because a lot of those other features are like sub-features, they're sub-components, and they have system component marked in the registry. So recently-ish, maybe 2-3 months ago, we started taking into consideration that. And then the last bit, actually, we started also supporting using the installer binary to perform uninstalls. So we can do a little bit more than just relying on the uninstall hive. And so kind of all of this combined lets us really expand out the number of apps that we support uninstalls on. I want to say Andrew did a full run through when he generated all of our apps, and there was maybe a dozen apps that we don't support uninstalls on now. So we've really kind of been trying to hammer that down.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so this is the feature you coded, Cody.
Yeah, so we had a lot of demand for this one. The main driver was because of our Intune updates. And the way our Intune updates work, they use a requirement script in order to determine if they're applicable on a device. So customers were kind of deploying them out widely, and they didn't want them to be immediately shown during enrollment, with autopilot or device enrollment. And so with enrollment status pages, you can associate applications with an enrollment status page, which Justin is trying to
I don't know what I'm doing. Where are these at again?
It's under enrollment, Windows enrollment.
Okay, here we go.
And then within here, you'll see enrollment status pages. So we now actually support managing that association. So you can add them here if you would like. And additionally, we will start carrying them forward. So if you have Google Chrome 88 in your environment managed by PatchMyPC, and then Google Chrome 89 comes out, we're going to make sure that new version is still in that enrollment status page. So you're always going to have the latest version of the applications inside your enrollment status page associations.
Everyone knows what enrollment status pages is, right? I just wanted to really be very specific with that because I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't understand.
Probably a mix. I know a good amount of our customers are ConfigMan only, so it might not be applicable for everyone.
We might do a video or a post about that, but like ESPs are really it's really cool, but it's very simple about what it's doing. I think there's value in doing something about it.
For sure. Yeah, I think a video would be awesome. I'm also including a link to the ESP feature as well. So if you guys want to check that out, there's some data there. Okay, next up we have Jake. So this will be another quick one. So, you're muted, Jake.
Rookie.
So, rookie mistake, right? On any ConfigMgr app, I have the option to do a simple right click and specify any requirements, whether it's for a 32-bit OS, for a server, or specifically for workstations.
Yes, this was another user voice we had for that one. So yeah, not much to it. You can just set requirements.
Yeah. Going into that.
It cost me 40 minutes to see the requirement when installing the server the other day. When trying to install in the server.
That's funny.
So and when we created that, I just want to note that we didn't want to have to recreate the entire wizard that is in ConfigMgr. That's why the options are somewhat limited. So if there are other specific options you want, let us know. But we really don't look forward to having to recreate the entire requirements wizard within ConfigMgr in our publisher.
We do copy forward custom requirements, or we should. We copy, so if you add a requirement to an application,
we do. I tested it.
And so we will copy forward custom requirements. If you edit the OS list requirement, though, it is going to get overwritten.
No, it doesn't. I tested it.
Oh, that doesn't get overwritten either?
No, that works. That copies over.
Yeah, so here's an example of, I actually just created that Chrome app in 10 seconds, right? But I had the 32-bit requirement, and I also had the server requirement. So, if we go through, we'll see that it only supports 32-bit servers, which obviously none of the newer servers are 32-bit. So it looks like we actually only set it on 2003, because that's one of the only ones we had for that. So kind of funny, but pretty cool feature. Another one that came from user voice. All right, Jordan.
All right, so customizable naming conventions for Intune applications. So something that we get a lot of questions about is, can we set customized names? And we do. We actually allow the ability to do that. So if you go in, we actually can. Oh, and this is the other side piece too.
Yeah,
now, isn't
this
it?
is the preview.
Are you showing the new feature? Yeah, the preview.
Yeah,
feature.
sorry,
Okay.
I was going to say this is all shiny and new. It's your feature, but it's been bundled into my feature.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I see. I was going to say, because this must be in the preview part of it.
This
though.
is
Yeah.
preview.
So we
yeah.
actually let you go ahead and add in these before, and this is right now in its current state. It's a little bit smaller. Basically, the top half of the box exists. The bottom half does not exist, and in the current version, the production one. But you can do all the different variables that you see there, as well as just plain blanket text, and get kind of your own customized naming structure to ensure that the applications follow your desired naming structure for organizations when those apps get created in Intune.
Yep. Yeah, that's a quick one. Alrighty. Sweet. Next up, we have special variable. Yep. So this is you, Jake.
Yep. So if we go into look at an app, like whether on the ConfigMan side of things here or Intune, doesn't matter. And we go, like, let's say, for example, you've got like a setup.ini file or something like that you need to specify during the installation via the command line. You can now specify the current directory, and then you can make a reference to that setup.ini file in that pre and post script option and add an additional file. So you could put like your setup.ini in that additional file section, and then reference the current directory in the actual installation command line.
Yeah, so this was another user voice. I think there was like an older installer technology that required the full path and it couldn't detect relative. So that was kind of the use case for this one.
We did have, before we get to this real quick, someone did ask about assigning admin categories via PMPC, and that's a relatively new feature too, if you want to show that for ConfigMan categories.
Yep, that's good.
We supported an Intune as well, but there's managed categories, and this is admin and user categories.
Yep. So yeah, that is pretty new. Yep. I don't think we've covered that one on anything like this. Yeah. So that was set both admin and user, like Cody was saying there. I think the admin piece of that might have actually been on the last Ask Us Anything, or it was relatively newer than the user categories, right? I think so. Yeah. Alrighty.
It's hard to say.
Cody, this one was your implementation.
Yeah, for sure. So we do offer some SSRS dashboards. They've kind of been chatted about here a little bit. And one of the features that we did add was a new parameter on a few of the top level dashboards. And that's just a deployed yes, no checkbox. Defaults to yes and no. Everything is deployed and is not deployed. So if you are only interested in reporting on updates which you've deployed, then you can set this to yes, and potentially you're going to get a different data set. And this is just kind of based on, it's not like a particular software update group or anything. It's just flat is or is not deployed, not targeting any particular device or software update group. It's very high level, but it's on a few of the dashboards.
Kind of interesting data though, right? So, I mean, you could look at deployed equals no, and it looks like in our lab, we have one that's required, an update that's required that's not being, deployed here. So this one right here. I guess it's not really applicable in our case, but that could be interesting looking at no and yes to see maybe there's some updates that you accidentally did not deploy, right? So pretty cool. Andrew?
So we added the feature in our Intune update section. Previously, we did not have any of the MSP-based updates, so we've added those. You can actually let's show off the right-click feature, Justin, where you can show the apps or the right-click. Nope, you're way off.
No.
Show package.
Right, yeah,
show package.
We're in the demo catalog though.
Oh no.
So here, let me pull. I can get it.
Okay. So there's very few apps in our catalog. I want to say maybe 6 or 7 that actually run MSP-based installs. And so previously those weren't supported in Intune updates. We've added those as Intune updates. We had utilizing ScriptRunner. And so now if you go in here, you can actually right click. I like this feature too.
Yeah, the big issue here was like MSP updates for things like Adobe were sometimes newer than the base installs.
There we go. So now you're able to actually update the Adobe apps through if you're on Intune only. So this was something that we knew we were missing. We only had like the base installs before, and now we are able to support these updates. We also had to split the Adobe product. So you'll see now that you end up having the continuous and the MUI and Intune updates. And we're not completely done with it. We have all the tracks. We'll have all the tracks available in the Intune update section as well. We're waiting for one more feature to roll out to production before we do that.
Ready. This Intune icon description. This was the one you coded, Ben.
We already did that.
Yeah, I guess we did.
We already did that.
Yeah, we pretty much did that. It's the same concept as the custom name. It's just exposing a little more customization that you currently have available in the Intune portal, but just making it available through our product. So, we've now got the name, we've got description and icon. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yes, and that was another one to bring kind of feature parity to what we had in ConfigMan apps, where we could have a custom icon. Of course, if you don't set the icon or description, we're going to give you kind of the default. So it's still going to be very user friendly. You're going to get your kind of the default vendor description, icon, keywords like URLs. But just in case there was ever a use case where you did want to customize it, yeah.
Exactly. I think my goal here is to get feature parity with ConfigMgr and Intune, and then convince everyone to move to Intune. So.
All right, scopes.
Be warned.
Yeah, I know Intune.training guys are doing pretty good at making sure the resources are out there for how to do Intune. So I know we've got Jake and Ben both on the team now. So kind of taking a lot of the guys over on that YouTube channel.
Exactly.
All right, so this was Intune scopes. Cody, do you want to talk about it? I know you coded. I had it for me, but
Oh yeah. So this was a relatively recent request, but the code behind is somewhat similar to some of the other features. There was a caveat that kind of caught us by surprise, but you can have scopes which are used for role-based access within Intune, and we now support being able to go ahead and manage those on the applications within Intune. So if you want to associate the scope with an app, you can select that within the publisher. And then during a sync, we will add those scope tags. But something we also will do, and something we try to do, is we'll carry those forward. So if you've already been managing scope tags on your applications in Intune, you're now going to be able to have those copied forward as well when we create new versions of applications.
Oh, this is funny. I don't think any of the labs I have open today have the registration updated to give us the permission. Let me see. Did you have in your demo 4 tenant? Does that have the permissions coded?
Demo 4 has it.
And this is currently preview as well. So just be aware, if you're not on the preview channel, you will not see this. If you do want to opt into preview channels, you can do that in the About tab, and then you'll be able to see the scope tag feature. So let's see if... there we go. Yep.
You can also, after you update the preview, you can uncheck the preview box, and you'll be back to... And you won't be automatically pushed back, but you'll get the next latest production that's available next time. So if you want to just test one feature, you can do that easily.
Cool. Alrighty. Let's go next. Only a couple more left, and then we'll see if there's any questions. I know we're just about near the end. No, that was the end. Cool. Any other questions before we drop off? Hopefully kind of the demo feature, was that helpful, kind of seeing what's new in the past couple months? I think we'll probably keep doing that on all our AMAs, but we do have a couple people. Brian, if you want to come off on mute.
Yeah, well, you were looking at the add customization pre and post scripts. Is it possible to create multiple instances? So we've got one group that has one customization.
Yeah, so good question. Not today, but we do know it's a big use case. So I think do we have a user voice specifically for it? I think we might.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So can you paste that in?
So
It keeps me up at night.
Find it. No, so this is an interesting one. I had a decently lengthy conversation with a customer about being able to start maintaining multiple instances of each application, right? Multiple configs. And it makes sense for whether it's, organizations that have a bunch of suborgs that have different license keys. Maybe you want to localize names and descriptions. Maybe just in general, different scope tags is another huge one, right? Scope tags are really valuable when we start auto creating your apps that are already scoped out to your various orgs. So we definitely know the use case. It's something we definitely intend to add in is multi-config. Just a little bit of engineering work there, right? We've got to restructure how we start identifying what's published, what configs are set on what apps. But yeah, for sure.
What about pre and post scripts for uninstalls, not just installs?
One I think is a user voice. I want to say it's marked
Good
plan.
one. Yeah, I think it's on the.
It's marked
I
plan.
think it's on the roadmap. I think you're right, Cody. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
It might have even been marked.
Is the use case for that just extra cleanup?
Probably.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also, I think manage conflicting processes is another one for uninstalls that wouldn't even run, right? I don't think. So there's some.
Yeah, so we actually had it on the roadmap for this month. With some of the changes to the scope tags that we've been working on, as well as the Intune or the config manager retain apps, I think it's unlikely that we'll implement it this month. But I think we'll probably realistically be able to maybe push it to April and hopefully get that implemented.
I see 2 user voices for the multi-config bits. I'm just going to go ahead and paste both of those. So let me get both of them. I'm going to put those in the chat if you guys want to add votes or comments for use cases, right? The more information we have, we can account for those when we develop the feature. We don't want to miss something. So if there's something that you guys think would be valuable, let us know.
Right. Kent, do you want to come off on mute?
Yeah, it's not a question, Justin. It's a statement. I was laughing when I saw the one post about how do you compare to the other companies? And I can say, as a customer, checking out several different companies, none of them came even remotely close to what PatchMyPC has done for our organization. And a perfect example was Justin just happened to be on showing me something. We're a new client. And I said, we've been on this call with Microsoft for days. They can't figure out what happened. And Justin's like, oh, yeah, that can absolutely happen if this happens. I'm like, so Microsoft wasted 2 days of my time. Justin came up with the answer in 5 minutes. So my point is, not only do they know their tool, but they know the environments around it, where the other tools, the other vendors, won't be mentioned, are terrible with anything external to their tools. So that's it. I just wanted to close on a positive note.
I appreciate that. Every once in a while, I can be of some help. Not too often, but every once in a while, I'll be helpful.
Yeah, it was funny.
We appreciate
It's an interesting dynamic, right? Because almost everyone here, all these engineers that have been answering these questions and talking, right? We used to manage environments. We used to use tools like this. We used to write our own tools, and so with that as our backing, we hope to have a decent understanding of what we would want that experience to be like on that customer side. And if we don't know what it is, we talk to our customers and we want to understand it. That's the whole drive behind the user voice and these conversations and these AMAs. Every day that I work here, I can really echo on some of the things I've heard from when you go to MMS and the devs sit there and they say, we don't use this software, right? Like, yeah, we do, but we don't use it. We don't use it like you guys. And so the feedback that we get from you is just invaluable. We're never going to be able to fully understand the use cases, the problems, the scenarios that you guys are day to day. So the more we get that,
great
better.
work.
Appreciate that. Alrighty. Yep.
Hello?
Hey.
Yeah. Just only want to would say something before ending. Is I think I don't write on the user voice, but have you ever seen the possibility to have our own local catalogs using your technology.
We
and I mean, I can manage this cube. I can make my own updates, but it would be so good to have the updates added on the catalogs. Just put the sources and use your tool to add MSTs or whatever.
So, it's tough. Go ahead, Cody.
No, I'm just thinking we literally do you mean you make updates in SCUP or no?
Yes, I can do it. Yeah.
If you make your own,
so
we tossed the idea around quite a bit.
Go
ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
The hard part is making it digestible. There's a lot of information you need to know about the publisher itself in order to actually make a catalog that works with it correctly. We have some internal tools to make that easier at this point. I've played with the idea of trying to figure out how to transition that to an external tool, because we do get asked a lot, like for custom apps. And I think it's something we would want to make. The hard part is making it easily digestible for a customer and making sure it doesn't sink all of our support time. Because I can just imagine the situation where we're getting hundreds of support requests a day because
this update is not working or whatever.
Yeah. So it's really, because this is the team. We're a small team. So we have to ensure that we keep things manageable for us so we can keep providing this awesome support.
Yeah.
But we definitely do want to provide something like that. I think it's going to take a lot of.
It would be nice. It would be so wonderful, man.
It's definitely a nice to have. So it's something that we're looking forward to in the future, but there's a lot of things we have to work out in terms of how it'll be supported, how to make it easy enough to be digestible by the average customer. I'm going to assume the people here, these people are interested in the product, but someone that's not on the like someone that's not super familiar with the product or familiar with how app installers work, because you have to have a lot of inside knowledge on how even MSIs work sometimes to figure out how to install these things. So it becomes very complicated very quickly.
So we get the use case for sure. Like if we could do it in a way that we think is sustainable, where it's easy enough to implement on the customer side, definitely would be a cool feature that we would think about. Just it would have to be something we get right for sure. All right, Andrew, Peacock, not you, Andrew. Sorry.
I'm like, what?
Well, I did also want to say that you guys do provide amazing support and are very responsive and much more knowledgeable than Microsoft about their own product. But one question I did have is, in our environment, the systems administrators team doesn't have access to the SCCM server directly, and that's where the publishing agent lives. Is it possible to have two of those running together, or
sort of?
So they put it on a second server, or
sort of. So the one that is running for publishing software updates would need to be on the WSUS server for software updates, right? So this one would have to live on the WSUS server. Now, what you could do that would be supported is if you wanted to have a separate one for applications, this could technically live on any machine that has the ConfigMan console. So there could be a use case, but the one that actually is publishing the updates, you would need to ensure is on the WSUS server at the top level. But like if maybe it was the app admins that you had that would be potentially changing the apps, you could have that one live somewhere else if you wanted to. Would that be a helpful use case, or is it the update one that you want somewhere else?
It's kind of both. It's the application one is either one is helpful. That would be more helpful than currently. They don't have any access to this at all without getting another team involved for access to the WSUS server. But I'm wondering if like a remote console access or something would be maybe in the roadmap or thought about.
I mean, you could do it today if you set like a remote app up via RDS for those guys. Like then they would only get access to that console from there. But as it stands today,
we do. So that's one of the user voices. It potentially might have been one of the questions, I think. But so there's a lot of votes on that one. We do know the use case for sure for a remote console. One thing that we might even swing back in and reeval is, could we ever, here it is. Could we ever even allow publishing from a remote server for even the update piece? The main concern now is, would there ever be any issues with maybe the machine that's running the WSUS RSAT tools remotely not having the same version of what we're publishing, and there could be some compatibility issues in some cases. That's the main reason why we require the publisher, when you're publishing updates, to be on the same top level stuff that you're actually publishing to. But we could do some research and maybe reevaluate that to see if we could handle that maybe better in the future as well.
Yeah, I know the end goal should probably be something like right click.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's take maybe this one last one. Do you want to come off on mute, go prep? Hopefully.
Yep. So I think this was probably discussed earlier on in this discussion about so if I have an application and I do some customizations in ConfigMgr and PatchMyPC updates that, so the customizations would still be retained, right? I kind of got it partially.
Do you know a list of everything we copy over, Cody?
Oh man, I could try to speak to it, but David might speak to it a little bit better. Definitely requirements. We try to carry, as customers have mentioned it, we do our best to continue to carry over custom configs. If you find one that doesn't carry over, let us know. That's what I could speak to.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Like, let's say, and like it might do this today, but let's say custom return code. Let's say you added something and then you determine it's not carried over when we update it. Just let us know. But I think most of the key things we carry over today if you update it directly in ConfigMan. But if there's something that doesn't, just let us know and we could certainly add it. Okay, looks like there's no raised hands. I do want to thank everybody for joining. Hopefully this was insightful for you guys to maybe interact directly with us. Our last one was about a month and a half ago. We don't have a specific cadence on what we're doing. Probably every 2 to 3 months, maybe a little more in some cases, we are going to have these AMAs and kind of feature demos. So keep an eye on our Twitter account, our social media. Yeah, I hope to see you guys all again. And thanks for all the feedback.